Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES horizon and watched the stars through the main screen. His ship had been exploring the edge of human space for 3 months now. They were looking for new worlds that humans could live on. Jake had been a captain for 10 years, but he had never seen anything like what appeared on his sensors that morning. "Captain, we have something strange out there," said Lieutenant Ben Carter from his post. Ben was young, but he was good at his job. He pointed at his screen with excitement in his voice. "It does not look like anything we have ever built." Jake walked over to look at the readings. The object was big, and it moved in ways that human ships could not move. It seemed to bend and twist through space without using any engines they could see. The hull looked like it was made of crystal that changed colors as it moved. "Get Ambassador Kira Voss up here right away," Jake told his crew. Kira was the best diplomat they had on board. If this was really an alien ship, then they would need her skills to talk to whoever was inside. Engineer Lisa Park ran tests on the strange ship from her station. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. This ship uses power sources we do not understand. The metal or crystal or whatever it is made from seems to be alive somehow." Kira arrived on the bridge within minutes. She was a smart woman who could speak 12 human languages, and she had studied every theory about how to talk to aliens. But theories were very different from the real thing. "What do we know about them?" she asked. "Nothing yet," Jake replied, "but they are not trying to hide from us. In fact, I think they want us to see them." The alien ship moved closer to the horizon. It was 3 times bigger than their human vessel, and it glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols appeared on its surface and then faded away. The symbols looked like they might be some kind of writing, but no human had ever seen anything like them before. "They are sending us a signal," Ben reported. "It is not radio or any communication method we use. It seems to go directly into our computers somehow." The main screen changed and showed the image of a creature that was clearly not human. It had 4 arms and skin that looked like smooth metal. Its eyes were large and golden, and it had no mouth that they could see. When it spoke, the words appeared as text on their screens. "Greetings, primitive beings. I am High Trader Zefkol of the Vextar Collective. Your species is new to us. We wish to examine your capabilities and determine your value in galactic trade." Kira stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Kira Voss representing humanity. We are pleased to meet you and learn about your people." Zefkol seemed surprised that the humans could understand and respond so quickly. Most new species took much longer to figure out basic communication. "You adapt faster than expected. This is interesting. We will send a shuttle to bring your leaders to our ship for proper evaluation." Jake did not like the word evaluation, but he knew this was the most important moment in human history. "We accept your invitation, but we want to send our own shuttle as well. Ambassador Voss and 2 of my officers will come to meet you." The alien seemed to think about this for a moment. "Very well. But know that we follow strict protocols when meeting new species. You will be tested to see where you fit in the galactic order." As they prepared for the meeting, Jake felt nervous, but also excited. Humans had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were not. But what worried him was how the alien had talked about testing them and determining their value. It sounded like the galaxy might not be a friendly place for newcomers. Lisa worked quickly to prepare their shuttle. She added extra shielding and communication equipment. "Captain, I have a bad feeling about this. The way that alien talked made it sound like they think they are better than us." Ben nodded in agreement. "Their ship is much more advanced than ours. What if they decide we are not worth keeping around?" Jake knew his crew was worried, but someone had to take the first step. "We go in with our eyes open. Kira will handle the talking and we will be ready for anything. This is bigger than just our ship or even our colony. This is about the future of all humanity." The shuttle launched toward the alien vessel with Kira, Ben, and Jake aboard. As they flew closer, they could see that the crystal ship was even more beautiful and strange than it had looked from far away. Patterns of light moved through its walls like flowing water. They were about to learn where humans stood in a galaxy full of other intelligent life forms. None of them knew that this first meeting would start events that would change everything for every species in the galaxy. Dr. Alex Reed stared out the window of the Vexstar transport ship as they approached the galactic core. 3 months had passed since first contact, and now he was part of the first human delegation to visit alien worlds. Next to him sat xenobiologist Samantha Brooks, who was taking notes on everything she saw. The view outside was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Massive space stations floated between the stars like small moons. Ships of dozens of different designs moved in organized patterns through space lanes that stretched for light years. Some vessels looked like living creatures, while others appeared to be made of pure energy. The scale of it all made human civilization seem very small. "Look at that," Samantha whispered as they passed a ring world that circled an entire star. "That structure must be home to billions of beings. How long did it take them to build something like that?" High Trader Zephkol stood nearby listening to their conversation. Over the past few months, he had become fascinated by how quickly humans asked questions and made connections. "That ring belongs to the Mindari Collective. They built it over the course of 50,000 years using psychic powers to move matter at the quantum level." Alex felt his mind struggle to understand such vast timescales. 50,000 years? That is longer than human recorded history. "Indeed," Zephkol replied. "Which brings us to why you are here. The Galactic Council must determine where humanity fits in the Dominion system. Every species has a tier ranking based on their technological achievement and temporal stability." Samantha looked up from her notes. "What do you mean by temporal stability?" "How long your civilization has existed without destroying itself," Zephkol explained. "The Eternals at the top have maintained their society for millions of years. The Kethvar Empire below them has lasted 300,000 years. Each tier represents different levels of development and different rights within galactic society. Their transport docked at a station that looked like a crystal flower blooming in space. Commander Ryan Hayes was waiting for them at the airlock. He had arrived a week earlier as part of the advance team, and his face looked troubled. "Dr. Reed, Dr. Brooks, we need to talk privately before we meet with the council," Ryan said in a quiet voice. He led them to a small room where they could speak without being overheard. "I have learned things about this tier system that you need to know." Alex sat down and prepared himself for bad news. Ryan had been a military officer for 15 years, and Alex had never seen him look so concerned. "The tier system is not just about ranking species," Ryan began. "It determines everything. What resources you can access, what territory you can claim, even whether you get to survive. Species below Tier 8 face something called resource reallocation." Samantha felt her stomach drop. "What does that mean exactly?" Ryan pulled up images on a portable screen. "I witnessed it yesterday. The Gentle Ones of Kepler, 442b, were a peaceful aquatic species. They had beautiful cities under their oceans and had lived in harmony for thousands of years. But they were classified as Tier 9 because their technology was considered primitive." And the images showed vast mining ships stripping away the oceans of an alien world. In the background, Alex could see the bodies of creatures that looked like intelligent dolphins floating in contaminated water. "They called it resource optimization," Ryan continued. "The Gentle Ones could not defend themselves, so their home world was strip-mined for rare minerals needed by higher-tier species. The survivors were relocated to reservation areas on other worlds." Alex felt sick. "How many species has this happened to?" "Hundreds over the past few millennia, maybe thousands. The galaxy operates on the principle that higher-tier species guide development for the greater good. Lower-tier species either advance quickly enough to earn protection, or they become resources for those who have." Samantha closed her eyes and tried to process what she was hearing. "Where do humans rank in this system?" "Preliminary assessment puts us at Tier 9, Ryan replied, barely above subsistence level. "Our technology is considered interesting but primitive. Our civilization is too young to have proven temporal stability." The implications hit them all at once. Humanity had just learned they were not alone in the universe, only to discover they were at the bottom of a hierarchy that treated entire species as expendable resources. "There has to be a way to appeal this ranking," Alex said. "We can show them human achievements in science and technology." Ryan shook his head. "I tried to argue our case, but the system is not designed for appeals. It is designed for stability. The tier rankings have maintained galactic peace for over 1,000,000 years, according to their records." A chime sounded, indicating it was time for them to meet with the Galactic Council. As they walked through corridors filled with beings from dozens of species, Alex noticed something disturbing. The lower-tier species they passed kept their eyes down and moved quickly out of the way when higher-tier beings approached. Fear was the foundation that this galactic peace was built on. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in tiers that went up so high the top was lost in shadows. At the bottom sat the human delegation, looking very small and alone. Above them were representatives of hundreds of species, arranged by their tier rankings. A voice spoke from the highest tier, but Alex could not see who was speaking. "Humanity. Of Sol System, you have been evaluated and assigned Tier 9 status. This grants you limited territorial rights and basic trade privileges. You will be assigned a mentor species to guide your development." Alex stood up, even though he knew it might be against protocol. "We request the right to prove our capabilities. Humanity has achieved things that might change how you see us." Silence filled the vast chamber for long moments. Finally, the voice spoke again. "Tier 9 species do not make requests. You will accept your assignment and be grateful for the opportunity to learn from your superiors." As they were escorted out of the chamber, Alex realized that humanity faced a choice. They could accept their place at the bottom of this galactic hierarchy, or they could find another way. But first, they had to survive long enough to get word back to Earth about what they had learned. President Elena Martinez read the classified report from the Galactic Core for the third time, and each reading made her more angry. The document sat on her desk in the Global Defense Council headquarters on Earth, and it contained the most disturbing news humanity had ever received. They were ranked as barely above primitive in a galaxy that treated lower species as resources to be harvested. "How long do we have?" she asked Dr. Nathan Cross, who stood across from her desk. Nathan was the head of the Advanced Research Division and one of the smartest people on Earth. "Based on the delegation reports, maybe 10 years before they decide. We are not advancing fast enough," Nathan replied. "The Vextar have been assigned as our mentor species, but their idea of mentoring seems to involve very slow and controlled development." Elena stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the sprawling research complex. Thousands of scientists and engineers worked in the buildings below. For the first time in human history, they were all working toward the same goal. "What do you need to accelerate our development?" she asked. Nathan pulled out a tablet showing research proposals. "We have started Project Synthesis. Instead of following the galactic model of specialized advancement, we are taking a different approach. We are developing modular and adaptive systems that can be rapidly reconfigured for different purposes." "Explain that in terms I can understand," Elena said. "Most galactic species spend thousands of years perfecting one type of technology before moving to the next," Nathan explained. "They build ships that are good at one thing and use them for centuries. We are building ships that can reshape themselves for different missions in real time." Professor Amy Chen entered the room carrying a prototype device that looked like a small metal cube. "Madam President, we have had a breakthrough in bioengineering. This device can analyze alien biology and adapt human technology to work with different life forms instantly." Elena took the cube and was surprised by how light it was. How does it work? Traditional galactic technology requires years of study to understand new species, Amy explained. This device learns in minutes and can modify its outputs to interface with any biological system we encounter. The door opened again, and Marine Sergeant Tyler Brooks walked in still wearing his combat gear. Tyler had just returned from war games where human forces had been testing new tactical concepts. His uniform was covered in mud, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "Madam President, we need to show you what we have discovered," Tyler said. "Our approach to combat is unlike anything the galaxy has seen before." Elena gestured for him to continue. Tyler had started as a simple soldier, but his ideas about adaptive tactics had caught the attention of the research division. "Galactic warfare follows predictable patterns," Tyler explained. "Each species develops a military doctrine and uses it for thousands of years. When they fight each other, they know what to expect, but humans adapt our tactics during battle based on what our enemy does." Nathan nodded in agreement. "Tyler has helped us understand that our greatest advantage is not any single technology, but our ability to innovate under pressure. While other species follow ancient patterns, we create new solutions in real time." Elena felt a spark of hope, for the first time since reading the delegation report. "Show me what you have built." They took a transport to the testing facility where Captain Nina Foster was waiting beside a prototype ship that looked unlike anything in the human fleet. The vessel seemed to shift and change shape as they watched it. "This is the experimental craft adaptation," Nina explained. "It uses programmable matter that can reconfigure itself based on mission requirements. Yesterday it was a fighter craft. Today it is a deep space explorer. Tomorrow it could be a mobile research station." Elena walked around the ship and watched as sections of the hull flowed like liquid metal into new configurations. "How fast can it change?" "Complete reconfiguration takes about 20 minutes, Nina replied. "But basic modifications can happen in seconds during flight. The ship literally evolves to meet whatever challenges it faces." Dr. James Mitchell joined them carrying a tablet full of test results. "Madam President, we have been running simulations against known galactic ship designs. Our adaptive technology gives us advantages that the tier system cannot account for." Elena looked at the data and saw something that made her smile for the first time in weeks. "Are you telling me that our Tier 9 technology can outperform higher-tier species?" "In many scenarios, yes," James replied. "But more importantly, we have begun sharing our innovations with other lower-tier species. The galaxy has never seen technology transfer happen this quickly." Elena thought about the implications of what she was hearing. Humanity was not just advancing their own capabilities, but helping other species advance as well. This was exactly the opposite of how the galactic hierarchy was supposed to work. Engineer Paul Adams approached carrying components of what looked like a weapon system. "Madam President, we have developed something that should worry the higher-tier species. These are adaptive weapon systems that learn from each enemy they encounter and modify their approach accordingly." "Show me," Elena said. Paul activated a demonstration that projected holographic targets representing different galactic ship types. The weapon system analyzed each target for a few seconds, then fired energy beams that adapted their frequency and intensity to penetrate each different type of shield technology. "Traditional galactic weapons are designed to be effective against specific defenses," Paul explained. "Our weapons learn and adapt to overcome any defense they encounter. The more they fight, the smarter they become." Elena realized that humanity had stumbled onto something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. While other species spent millennia perfecting single approaches, humans had learned to perfect the ability to change approaches rapidly. "How long before we can deploy this technology across the human fleet?" she asked. Nathan consulted his tablet. 6 months for basic adaptive systems, 18 months for full implementation across all human ships and facilities. Elena made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. Do it. and continue sharing our innovations with any species that wants to learn. If the galaxy wants to treat us as inferior, then they are about to learn what inferior species can accomplish when they work together. As Elena left the testing facility, she knew that humanity was about to challenge assumptions that had governed the galaxy for millions of years. The higher-tier species believed that advancement came slowly through careful control and ancient wisdom. They were about to discover that sometimes advancement came through young species who refused to accept limitations. Journalist Kate Sullivan had spent her career uncovering stories that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. Now she found herself in the most dangerous assignment of her life. She sat in a hidden base carved into an asteroid that officially did not exist. Around her were representatives from species that the galactic hierarchy had written off as unimportant. "Tell me about the Exodus Coalition," Kate said to the being across from her. Tethmore was a wanderer, a species that had rejected the tier system long ago and now lived in the spaces between established territories. "We are the Forgotten Ones," Tethmore replied through a translation device. "Species that refused to accept our assigned rankings or were marked for resource reallocation. For thousands of years we have survived in the shadows, while the Dominion system maintained its control through fear." Kate recorded everything on devices that Colonel Marcus Webb had given her. Marcus commanded the Human Special Forces unit that had made contact with the Coalition 3 weeks earlier. He stood nearby, listening to every word. "How many species are part of the Coalition?" Kate asked. 47 confirmed members," Tethmore answered. "But we believe there are hundreds more who would join us if they thought there was hope of success. Most lower-tier species live in terror of being noticed by the higher tiers." Admiral Rachel Torres entered the chamber, carrying intelligence reports that her ships had gathered during reconnaissance missions. Rachel had been skeptical about the Coalition at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. The galactic hierarchy was built on systematic oppression. "Kate, you need to see this," Rachel said as she activated a holographic display. "We have documented proof that the tier system is not natural evolution of galactic society. It was designed and is actively maintained." The display showed shipping records and communication intercepts that painted a disturbing picture. The Mindari collective used their psychic abilities to suppress innovation in lower-tier species. When a species began developing technologies that might threaten the established order, their research facilities would mysteriously suffer accidents, or their scientists would lose interest in their work. "Psychic sabotage," Kate whispered as she studied the data. "They are actively preventing species from advancing." "It gets worse," Marcus added. "The Kethvar Empire maintains the system through strategic intimidation. When a lower-tier species becomes too successful, they arrange for pirates or resource disputes that force them back into compliance." Tethmore gestured toward another section of the display. "And when subtle methods fail, they simply reclassify the troublesome species as requiring resource reallocation. Entire civilizations disappear, and their worlds are strip-mined." Kate felt sick as she realized the scope of what they were uncovering. "How long has this been going on?" "Over 1,000,000 years, Tethmore replied. "The system is so old that most species no longer remember there was ever any other way. Fear has become their natural state." Dr. James Mitchell arrived with a team of human engineers carrying equipment that Kate did not recognize. James had been working with Coalition scientists to understand their capabilities and limitations. "Admiral Torres, we have completed our assessment," James reported. "The Coalition has the motivation to challenge the Dominion system, but they lack the military strength to succeed. Most of their ships and weapons are centuries behind what the higher tiers possess." Rachel studied the technical specifications that James provided. "What would it take to upgrade their capabilities?" "That is where human adaptive technology becomes crucial," James explained. "Our modular systems can be retrofitted to work with any existing platform. We can upgrade Coalition ships and weapons faster than anyone thought possible." Engineer Paul Adams demonstrated by connecting a human adaptive device to a coalition fighter craft. Within minutes, the ship's performance parameters increased dramatically. Its shields became stronger, its weapons more accurate, and its engines more efficient. "This is impossible," said Crix, a reptilian being whose species had been hiding from the hierarchy for 2,000 years. "How can your primitive technology improve our systems so quickly?" Paul smiled as he explained the process. "Your technology is not primitive. It was just never allowed to reach its full potential. Our adaptive systems remove the artificial limitations that were built into your designs." Kate realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Human technology was not just advancing humanity, but was actively lifting up other species as well. This was the exact opposite of how the tier system was supposed to work. "Show me the full scope of the coalition network," Kate requested. Tethmore activated a galactic map that revealed the true extent of their organization. Hidden bases existed in asteroid fields and rogue planets throughout the galaxy. Communication networks linked refugee communities on hundreds of worlds. Supply lines moved resources and personnel through routes that the major powers ignored. "We have been preparing for this moment for generations," Tethmore explained. "We knew that someday a species would appear that could tip the balance. We just never expected it to be a Tier 9 species that had only recently discovered faster than light travel." Colonel Webb studied the tactical situation with professional interest. "What is your plan for challenging the hierarchy?" "Simultaneous uprisings across multiple sectors," Tethmore replied. "But we needed advanced technology to make it possible. Human adaptive systems give us that advantage." Admiral Torres considered the strategic implications. "How long before you can be ready?" "With human technical assistance, 6 months, Tethmore answered. "Our people are already in position. They just need the tools to fight effectively." Kate looked around the chamber at beings from dozens of species who had lived in hiding for generations. They were tired of being afraid and ready to fight for their freedom. Human technology was giving them hope for the first time in centuries. "Admiral, we need to get this story back to Earth," Kate said. "People need to know what is really happening in the galaxy." Rachel nodded in agreement. "Colonel Webb, begin full-scale technology transfer immediately. If we are going to challenge a million-year-old system, we need every advantage we can get." As Kate prepared to return to human space, she realized that the Coalition was about to attempt something that had never been tried before. They were going to fight not just for their own freedom, but for the right of all species to determine their own destiny. The galaxy was about to discover that when oppressed people unite, they become a force that even ancient powers cannot stop. Captain Lisa Anderson watched her tactical display as the rebellion erupted across 17 star systems simultaneously. Her ship, the Defiance, was one of 50 vessels in the Coalition's first major fleet action. The hybrid design combined human, adaptive technology with Wanderer stealth systems and Crix defensive capabilities. The result was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Enemy fleet detected," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Greg Stone. "Kethvar battle group approaching. From the Rigel sector, 20 ships including 2 dreadnoughts." Lisa studied the approaching enemy formation. The Kethvar Empire had dominated galactic warfare for 300,000 years, using tactics that had never failed them. Their ships were massive and powerful, with weapons that could destroy planets. But Lisa was about to show them that raw power meant nothing against opponents who could adapt faster than they could react. "All ships modify configuration to Assault Pattern 7, Lisa ordered. Around her, the Coalition fleet began to change. Ships that had looked like trading vessels suddenly sprouted weapon arrays. Escort craft merged their shield systems to create protective barriers. Support ships reconfigured into mobile repair platforms. The Kethvar commander, Admiral Vorthak, had never seen anything like it. His intelligence reports said he was facing a ragtag collection of primitive species with outdated equipment. Instead, He watched as the enemy fleet transformed itself into a perfectly coordinated war machine in real time. "Fire all weapons," Vorthak ordered. The Kethvar dreadnoughts unleashed energy beams that could crack moons. But the Coalition ships were no longer where the targeting computers expected them to be. They moved in patterns that defied conventional tactical analysis. Lisa coordinated the Coalition response through neural links that human engineers had adapted from Mindari technology. Every ship captain could share information and adjust tactics instantly. When one vessel discovered an effective attack pattern, the entire fleet learned it within seconds. "Target their command ship," Lisa ordered. "Pattern adaptation complete. All ships execute synchronized assault." Major Steve Wilson led the Coalition's first counter-psychic operation from his command ship Resistance. Steve had been one of the first humans to encounter Mindari mental attacks, and had developed defenses that protected his mind from psychic intrusion. Now he was teaching those techniques to other species. "Mindari collective ships detected," reported his psychic warfare. Officer Commander Joan Parker. Joan was a human who had discovered she could not only resist psychic attacks, but could actively interfere with them. "Begin counter-psychic operations," Steve ordered. Around him, specialists from 6 different species worked together to create a psychic shield that protected the entire Coalition fleet. When the Mindari attempted to dominate the minds of Coalition crews, they found their attacks turned back on themselves. The Mindari had never experienced psychic resistance before. For millions of years, they had controlled other species through mental domination. Now they faced opponents who could not only resist their powers, but could actively fight back using techniques they did not understand. Professor Karen Lee coordinated the information warfare aspect of the rebellion from the mobile university ship Enlightenment. Her team included scientists and philosophers from dozens of species who had been working together to develop new ideas about galactic society. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Karen ordered. "Let every species in the galaxy know that the Coalition offers an alternative to the tier system." The message went out in hundreds of languages and communication methods. For the first time in galactic history, lower-tier species heard that they did not have to accept their assigned rankings. They learned that cooperation and shared knowledge could accomplish more than hierarchical control. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On worlds throughout the galaxy, oppressed species began to rise up against their appointed overseers. Workers in mining operations abandoned their posts. Scientists in research facilities began sharing forbidden knowledge. Even some higher-tier species began to question the system they had always accepted. Captain Roy Clark commanded the Deep Strike mission against Vexstar commercial infrastructure. Roy had learned that the Vexstar Collective maintained their trade monopoly through a network of automated stations that controlled shipping throughout the galaxy. His job was to show them that their monopoly could be broken. "Adaptive viruses deployed," reported his cyber warfare specialist, Dr. Linda Hayes. Linda had created computer programs that could learn and modify themselves faster than any security system could adapt. "Vexstar shipping networks are being overwhelmed." The viruses did not destroy the Vexstar systems, but instead opened them up to competition. Suddenly, lower-tier species could bid on shipping contracts that had been restricted to established powers for millennia. Trade routes that had been closed for thousands of years became available to anyone with ships and cargo. "Sir, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy," reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Carl Young. "The economic disruption is spreading faster than we anticipated." Roy smiled as he read the reports. Vexstar traders were discovering that their ancient business practices could not compete against species that could innovate and adapt quickly. Markets that had been stable for centuries were suddenly in chaos as new competitors appeared seemingly overnight. The cascade effect that human strategists had predicted was beginning to manifest. The galactic hierarchy depended on predictability and control. When lower-tier species began acting unpredictably and developing capabilities beyond their assigned parameters, the entire system started to break down. General Patricia Moore received reports from coalition cells across the galaxy. Patricia commanded the overall rebellion strategy, and she could see that their limited goals were being exceeded in every sector. "Ma'am, the Eternal Corps has issued an emergency decree," reported her intelligence chief, Colonel Frank Miller. "They are mobilizing forces that have been dormant for thousands of years." Patricia studied the reports with growing concern. The Eternals were the mysterious beings at the top of the galactic hierarchy. They rarely intervened directly in galactic affairs, but when they did, entire species could be erased from existence. "Send word to all coalition forces," Patricia ordered. "Phase 2 is beginning earlier than planned. We have gotten their attention, and now we have to be ready for their response." As the rebellion spread across the galaxy, it became clear that humanity had started something that could not be stopped. The coalition was no longer just a group of refugee species hiding in the shadows. They had become a galactic movement that offered hope to billions of beings who had never imagined they could be free. But Patricia knew that their greatest challenge was still ahead. The Eternals had maintained their control for millions of years, and they would not give up their power easily. The galaxy was about to witness a confrontation between forces that represented completely different visions of how intelligent life should organize itself. General Patricia Moore stood on the bridge of the coalition flagship Unity as it approached the Eternal Core. Around her were representatives from over 200 species that had joined the rebellion. What had started as a desperate uprising by oppressed peoples had become the largest gathering of free beings in galactic history. But Patricia knew they were about to face their greatest test. "Ma'am, we are detecting massive energy signatures ahead," reported sensor operator Lieutenant Dave Cooper. "The readings are off our scales. Whatever is waiting for us has power levels we cannot measure." Patricia studied the tactical display showing the space around the Eternal Core. Ancient structures floated in impossible configurations that seemed to bend reality itself. Ships that looked like crystallized starlight moved in patterns that hurt to watch. This was the center of galactic power that had remained hidden for millions of years. "All ships maintain formation," Patricia ordered. "Remember that we came here to talk, not to fight. But be ready for anything." Captain Roy Clark commanded the escort wing protecting the diplomatic vessels. His ship Determination had been modified with the latest human adaptive technology and coalition improvements. But Roy knew that conventional warfare would be useless against beings who could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. "General Moore, we are receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Commander Beth Williams. "It is coming from everywhere at once somehow." The voice that filled their ships belonged to no single being, but seemed to speak with the authority of cosmic forces themselves. "Representatives of the rebellion, you have disrupted the order that has maintained galactic stability for eons. We are the Eternals, and we demand you explain your actions." Patricia stepped forward, even though she knew the beings she was addressing might not even have physical forms. "I am General Patricia Moore, representing the Galactic Coalition of Free Peoples. We seek the right of all intelligent species to determine their own destiny without interference from hierarchical control systems." Silence stretched across space for long moments before the eternal voice responded. "Your species has existed for mere moments in galactic time. You understand nothing of the forces that govern civilizations. The tier system has prevented countless wars and maintained peace across millions of worlds." Dr. Karen Lee joined the conversation from her position aboard the university ship. Karen had spent months studying the historical records that coalition archaeologists had uncovered. "Your peace is built on fear and oppression. We have found evidence of thousands of species that were destroyed or enslaved to maintain your stability. Sacrifices made for the greater good," the eternal voice replied without emotion. "Individual species are temporary, but galactic civilization must endure. We offer humanity elevation to Tier 2 status in exchange for restoring order to the systems you have disrupted." Patricia felt the weight of the offer. Tier 2 status would make humanity one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They would have access to advanced technology and vast resources. All they had to do was abandon the coalition and help suppress the rebellion they had started. "We reject your offer," Patricia said firmly. "We do not want to rule over other species. We want to work with them as equals." The space around the coalition fleet began to change as the Eternals demonstrated their power. Stars shifted position in the sky. Gravitational fields twisted in ways that should have torn their ships apart. Reality itself became fluid as beings with godlike abilities showed what they could do to any who opposed them. "You will comply or face extinction," the Eternal voice declared. "We have guided galactic development for millions of years. We will not allow primitive beings to destroy what we have built." Captain Lisa Anderson coordinated the coalition response from her flagship Defiance. Lisa had learned that the Eternals expected them to surrender when faced with superior power. But humans had never been good at surrendering when they believed in their cause. "All ships link adaptive systems," Lisa ordered. "If they want to fight reality, then we show them what happens when reality fights back." The coalition fleet began to merge their technologies in ways that should have been impossible. Human adaptive systems connected with Wanderer phase technology and Crick's quantum mechanics. Ships that had been separate entities became part of a single organism that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The Eternals discovered that their reality manipulation had no effect on targets that could adapt faster than the changes could be implemented. When they tried to crush coalition ships with artificial gravity, the vessels simply modified their structural integrity to resist. When they attempted to erase them from existence, the adaptive systems learned to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "This is impossible," the Eternal voice said with what might have been surprise. "No species should be able to resist our control over fundamental forces." Major Steve Wilson led the Psychic Warfare Division in an assault on Eternal mental defenses. Steve had learned that the Eternals maintained their power partly through psychic domination that operated on a galactic scale. Every species in the hierarchy was subtly influenced to accept their assigned roles and never question the system. "Break the mental chains," Steve ordered his teams. "Show every being in the galaxy that they can think for themselves." The psychic liberation wave spread outward from the coalition fleet at faster than light speeds. Across the galaxy, billions of beings suddenly found themselves able to think thoughts that had been suppressed for generations. Scientists remembered research projects they had abandoned for no clear reason. Leaders questioned policies they had never examined. Workers wondered why they had accepted conditions they had never chosen. The effect was immediate and devastating to Eternal control. The tier system depended on every species accepting their assigned role without question. When beings across the galaxy began to question everything at the same time, the entire structure started to collapse. "What have you done?" the Eternal voice demanded with something that sounded like panic. "Galactic civilization requires order and hierarchy. Without control, there will be chaos and war." Patricia realized that the Eternals genuinely believed their own propaganda. They had convinced themselves that their oppressive system was necessary for peace. "You are wrong. Intelligence creates cooperation when it is free to develop naturally. Your control system prevented that cooperation and created the conflicts you claim to prevent." The space around them filled with ships as species from across the galaxy arrived to support the coalition. Former enemies worked together as they realized their conflicts had been artificially created to maintain eternal power. The Kethvar Empire joined forces with species they had oppressed for centuries. The Mindari Collective shared their psychic abilities freely instead of using them for domination. "Look around you," Patricia continued. "This is what happens when beings are free to choose cooperation over competition. Your million-year empire is ending not because we destroyed it, but because we offered something better." The Eternal voice fell silent for a long time. When it spoke again, the cosmic authority was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost human. We sought to prevent the chaos we witnessed in our youth when species destroyed themselves through war and hatred. Perhaps in our caution, we created the very problems we sought to avoid. Captain Roy Clark watched as the ancient structures around the eternal core began to change. Instead of impossible geometries that bent reality, they transformed into something that resembled a vast university where beings from every species could come to learn and share knowledge. The Galactic Cooperative welcomes all who wish to contribute to our shared future, Patricia announced. Every species has something valuable to offer, and every being deserves the chance to reach their full potential. As the Coalition fleet departed the eternal core, Patricia looked out at a galaxy that was already transforming itself. The tier system was gone, but it was being replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history. Species were choosing to work together not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. Children from dozens of worlds would grow up in a galaxy where their potential was limited only by their imagination and effort. Scientists would share discoveries freely instead of hoarding them for advantage. Engineers would build wonders that no single species could have imagined alone. The galaxy no longer trembled because humans had united it. It thrived because humans had shown it how to unite itself.